I worked at a small, privately owned nursing home where a lot of the patients had been there for a long time. When the night nurse became ill, I took the night shift for 2 weeks right out of nursing school. The nursing home had old hallway lights that required a paper clip to turn them on and off, which I carried on my keyring. One night, I came in at 11 p.m., took a report, set up supplies, and shut out the lights, leaving only the lamp on my desk and the red exit sign to light up the hallway. While stocking med cups, I felt a whoosh of air and heard a rustling sound, thinking it was a restless resident. When I checked the resident's room, he was sound asleep. Everyone was accounted for. A little while later, I saw a figure pass by me and into room 3 out of my peripheral vision. I took the CNA with me to check on the resident, who was having a conversation with someone who wasn't in the room. He said he was talking to the man sitting in the chair in the corner. There was no one there. The next morning, I told the nurse what had happened. She knew exactly what I was talking about before I could even mention who the patient was talking to. She said it happened all the time. More than one patient had the same experience. I never found out the name of the mysterious man in the corner, but that was the end of my night shift stint at that nursing home. When I used to work in a nursing home, strange things happened. One resident refused to ride the elevator with me, claiming she was scared of a little boy. I didn't think much of it until another resident asked me for candy for the little boy. I spoke with my mom, who was a charge nurse and employee of 13 years, about it. She told me that residents had reported seeing the same little boy over the years, regardless of their mental state. When the residents moved to a new facility, the little boy came with them. He seemed to prefer residents with limited sight. The residents all described him the same way: black hair, living in a tent, and dying when a tree fell on him. One night, I was feeding a stroke victim who required total assistance. I felt a cold hand on my arm. The resident asked if the little boy was my boyfriend. I was terrified. There was nobody in the room with us. The resident who had seen the little boy passed away that night. As a caregiver on the night shift at a hospital, I look after disoriented, confused, and dying patients in the medical ward. We see many elderly patients with dementia or Alzheimer's. Recently, we admitted a 91-year-old woman with pneumonia who was completely blind, but mobile and had a clear mind. She used to be an English teacher, and her vocabulary and pronunciation attest to that. She's a strong-willed, independent, and stubborn lady. I was assigned to take care of her for the night, making sure she didn't injure herself by walking into things trying to find the bathroom. At around 11 p.m., I suggested she try to sleep, but she was still fidgeting with the blankets. When I leaned over to turn on the bedside light, she said, "Oh, you have the most beautiful blue eyes." Confused about how she could know that, I was stunned when she added, "And while you're up, please get an extra blanket for this little boy sitting on my bed. His skin is ice cold." She said it like it was normal, but it gave me chills. As if that wasn't enough, the call bell in the bathroom rang even though nobody was in there to press the button. I was alone washing dishes in a satellite kitchen in the late afternoon. The commercial-grade dish machine was making a lot of noise, so when I heard someone call my name, it was hard to hear. At first, I didn't think much of it, so I continued working. A few minutes later, I heard my name again, and this time it was louder. I turned off the dish machine and walked towards the door to check if someone was calling me. As I walked towards the center of the room, I heard a loud banging noise, as if someone was hitting the wall. But the walls were made of cinder block, so it didn't make sense. Then, someone whispered my name in my ear, and I heard pounding on the wall, like someone was trying to break down a door with both hands. The pounding moved along the walls of the room, starting by the door, then behind the dish machine, and onto another wall. I was frozen in the center of the kitchen, watching as the sound moved along the walls. The pounding stopped in the middle of the wall across from the door. I ran out of there as fast as I could. I sprinted through the halls and back to the main kitchen. I vowed to never work in that satellite kitchen alone again. I helped build a new skilled nursing building in 2010, but rumors quickly spread about it being cursed. I learned that the maintenance elevator was particularly uncomfortable to be in, with frequent reports of banging and scraping on the walls, even when the elevator was stationary. I made a point to avoid that elevator at all costs, but one night at 3 a.m., I was carrying a giant toolbox and didn't want to climb 5 flights of stairs. Luckily, I had the company of a security guard who was carrying a 10-foot ladder for me. The elevator ride was particularly noisy, with lots of scratching and banging. We joked about never getting to the 4th floor as the elevator seemed to be taking forever. Suddenly, the elevator slowed to a stop. The doors opened to reveal complete darkness. We should have been looking at a wall with a quilt on it, but instead, we were staring into an abyss. I couldn't tell you how long we stood there, paralyzed with fear, before I grabbed a screwdriver out of my toolbox. It was long enough that the door should have closed, but they didn't. Without thinking, I tossed the screwdriver out of the elevator. It made a loud clanging sound as it hit the ground. I was confused because our hallways are carpeted. Just then, I heard a loud roar that sounded like it was coming from the depths of the abyss. It was similar to the Tyrannosaurus roar from Jurassic Park, but much fainter. I don't know if the security guard heard it, but it chilled me to the bone. The doors finally closed, and the elevator started moving again. When it reached the 4th floor and the doors opened, we both jumped out and stood at the end of the hall in silence for a while. The security guard eventually looked at me and said, "Don't talk about that. Ever." I simply nodded in agreement, and we got back to work. Since that night, I avoid that elevator like the plague.